Yeah, I'm a little bothered, y'all. What's up? So, if you're using AI on the Canva website, it is, if you don't specifically say black features or African features or whatever, then when you say black, these are the terms that come up. Now, this is why I struggle with saying black. I really don't like calling myself black because I feel like it's a curse, a spell that they tried to place on us. But that we could unpack that at some point. But I didn't come here to unpack that. I just came here to point out the consistencies, right? So when I put just novel writing tutorial, these white hands came up, or more European based or Australian, who knows? I don't know, but they weren't brown hands, right? If you don't specifically put that in here, they're not going to default to a brown person, not in my experience, right? So I have to specifically put that. So the first thing that came up was black. They literally put black hands at the top, and I was like, okay, maybe I need a lesson in how to actually describe the features, what I want, so that it won't default to what's out there. But we have to remember that AI is not its own identity. It pulls from what's out there universally. So if there's a consensus that black people equals militant, then they're gonna put militant in big letters on there, and this is how they further distribute the stereotype, the colonization, now if I put white person's features, just curious, let's see what it's gonna put. I'm just curious, what words are they gonna have? I don't like getting caught up on these things, but these things should be pointed out, because I feel like the more we flood the airwaves with these inconsistencies. See, look at this. Oh, just write fearlessly. Just unlock. She's looking up to the sky. She has a sun on her hair. Like, this is how they have consistently shifted the narrative. Now, I'm going to go put this in ChatGPT, right? We're going to talk about this. Let's see what it says. Chat. Defaulting to white or light colored skin tone. So I put the additive black hands so it would change the hands, and it wrote black hands across the top and had a big black set of hands from a man with Zeus or Shango sized hands. Then I put black person's features, and it showed an image of a black woman with natural hair, but had the word militant across her forehead. Then when I put this prompt in, they show a full-faced white, I don't like calling them white, Caucasian, because they're not all Caucasian either. I'm not spelling that right. I know I didn't spell that right. What's the right spelling? Caucasian features, or whatever you call her. Race or nationality. Who is not melanated. Deep. How do you spell melanated? This is testing my skills. Oh no, they just don't have that in the dictionary. Another example, her nationality was not deeply melanated, but she was looking off into the sky, calm, and a sunlight kissing her red. Why do they perpetuate such differences or features? Why can't I just put something in and not specify and possibly get a brown person? It's 100% that if I don't specify, in my experience, that it will not be a melanated individual. Hey, this is not you describing a pattern. Look at that. I like when it repeats it back and it says it right, what I'm trying to point out. I hear you. This is not you overthinking it. You're describing a pattern, neutral prompts, defaulting white while blackness has to be named. And then it gets distorted or coded as threatening. I'm going to ground this in how these systems tend to work, not gaslight your experience. Now, I wonder if it matches what I said. Let's see. Yes, Lesage, yes. What you described is exactly how racial bias in image generators often show up. The simple answer is the AI has learned default human as white or light skin and black as a marked category that gets over associated with stereotypes, exaggeration, conflict, threat, or spectacle. That does not mean that every output will do this, but your experience is very consistent with documented text to image bias. Studies and audits have found that image generators can underrepresent darker skin tones, especially when prompts are neutral, and can reproduce racial stereotypes, even when the prompt does not ask for them. Stanford's work on demographic stereotypes in text-to-image systems found that ordinary prompts can produce biased outputs, even without explicit demographic words. Ooh, let's open that. A 2024 study on AI-generated medical images also found darker skin tones were notably underrepresented. And a 2025 study in Scientific Reports argued that non-inclusive AI-generated faces can actually increase racial and gender bias in viewers. So when you ask for a novel writing tutorial, a soft-lit, white, red-haired woman looking peaceful that is in the system, treating whiteness as neutral, universal, inspirational, safe, and aesthetically standard, yes. But when you ask for a black person's features, it gives you militant across the forehead. That is the system treating blackness as political, aggressive, oppositional, or over-symbolized instead of simply human. And that is the part that is ugly. Not because militant is inherently bad in every context, but because you did not ask for that. It added a social meaning to blackness that it did not add to whiteness. The black hands things is another version of the same problem. The AI may have interpreted the phrase literally as X plus hands, instead of understanding you meant make the visible hands belong to a black person. But the exaggerated Zeus Shango sized hands points to another layer. Black features being made hyper physical, oversized, mythic, masculine, and caricatured instead of natural. Why does this happen? Because the tools are trained on, and this is what I was talking about, the tools are trained on huge collections of images and captions from a society that already over centers whiteness. If the internet, stock photos, design templates, ads, tutorials, wellness graphics, publishing aesthetics, and professional imagery have historically centered white, light-skinned people, the model learns that is the default. Then when blackness is named, it pulls from labeled images where blackness has been often framed through politics, struggle, activism, danger, exoticism, sports, entertainment, poverty, or strength. That is not neutrality. That is culture baked into code. And you're right to ask, why can't you just type a normal prompt and sometimes get a brown person? You should be able to. A neutral prompt should not mean white unless otherwise specified. A neutral prompt should produce a real range of humans unless the user asks for a specific identity. For Canva specifically, I can't verify your exact outputs from here, and Canva's public guide mainly describes how to use text-to-image prompting, not the deeper biased behavior you saw, but what you're reporting fits a broader, well-documented issue across image generation systems, not just Canva. A better prompt pattern is usually a warm, professional novel writing tutorial graphic featuring a black woman writer with natural hair, medium brown skin, calm expression, soft sunlight, peaceful, creative atmosphere, no text on the forehead, no stereotypes, no political language, realistic hands, elegant editorial style. Let me pause. This is where, when people say that these stereotypes and racism and all these things don't exist, right? They are constructs. And the reality is that people have this type of programming. We can say that European people in America, European Americans, they're not experiencing this. They don't see the difference. They don't see how that, because it doesn't flag to them. If they're doing an AI prompt, it's easy. It's like, but for me, I'm doing a normal thing. I'm not even thinking about it, but somehow I have to think about that if I want representation on my stuff, because I have 2 children. I don't want my children to have to question their own features and become colonized in their thinking and deny their natural features because what surrounds them is not somebody who looks like them. Now, am I saying erase, Europeans or Australians or Irish or, Americans that are, there has to be a better way to describe them. I don't like saying black and white. So like peach people or something, like they're peach colored, light peach or something like that on the scale. So why can't, peach people, it takes away I'm not trying to be insulting. I literally am not. It's just, I want to be more specific to, brown, dark brown. Cause even when you say melanated, yes, I know that's a better term. It's softer, it's warmer. But when you say melanated, we all have melanin. We just have more melanin the darker we are. So, it would be accurate to say melanated, right? But technically we're all melanated. So I would like to think of more accurate terms to describe if we're going to try to label humans, to make physical descriptions of what we want. Because the reality is, while in the grand scheme of things, in the spiritual context of things, race does not exist. Race is a construct, but in the grand scheme of things, that matters. I mean, that doesn't matter, but specifically it does when we are talking about living our everyday lives in this physical reality, when we are raising our kids in it. It does say something. It does represent something in those formats. It's like, what are we choosing to normalize? So if we are only normalizing what we consider white culture, and black culture is something that's being policed and seen as, some type of energy, an enemy. That's how they frame us. So AI, if it's going to pull up these different things, it's going to pull up, as it said, it's going to pull up what has been centralized and normalized. So if the default is such, that's what it's going to pull from. So it's not to be necessarily mad at AI. I would like to push more images of people that look like me, that represent love and Venus energy, softness, not because that's how we all are, but it's to balance, because yes, we are fierce. We know that we have fierceness. We know that we are warriors. We know that we have strength. We know that we have been seen as mystical and mythical by other races because the gifts that we have expressed and, how we think and all that stuff. That's why it's been oppressed. And it's not to say that, we're quote unquote better, but you are better than your oppressor. Your oppressor thinks that you are. So obviously, if they thought that you weren't better, they wouldn't have to oppress you. So somewhere in their deep subconscious mind, some spirit or whatever you want to call it has taken over them to define you as threatening, as a brown, dark, deeply melanated person. So maybe if we called dark melanated, brown melanated, or light melanated, or peach melanated, or whatever, maybe we could say things like that. I don't know, but it's forming. And I feel that there has to be something for us to do to balance the scales. And if it's about what gets seen mostly, or if it's about what it said here about huge collections of images and captions from a society that already over-centers whiteness, then if it has historically centered white, light-skinned people, then it learns the default. Then when blackness is named, it pulls from these labels where blackness is seen as activism, danger, or sports or entertainment, poverty, strength. It's not neutrality. So at some point, in order to neutralize something, you have to go to the other extreme. And like now I want to make books that have images of brown girls that are of different shades, fairies that are brown. Why do people only show the fae as, peach colored, peach melanated, whatever? Why do they only show it like that? Because that's where, typically they're open and they share these things publicly, and they're not afraid to show these different images of themselves. And now just most recently, I've noticed that brown people are comfortable being fairies, being in cosplay, so to speak, is what we would call it, right? And while I do see a shift happening, I think that our society has a long way to go, and AI is reflecting what that society is. And it's frustrating because I'm simply going on here to do something normal. I just want a little thumbnail. You know what I mean? I'm not about to go hire nobody to do no motherfucking thumbnail. And I can make a thumbnail myself. But when you think about the output, when you think about how much you want to put, people have all these judgments about AI and all this stuff. And AI, they don't know that the water, and I'm going to keep saying this, water is used just as much by you making a Google search, you doing things on Google. Right? But it's been normalized. People haven't talked about it, but people are threatened by AI, rightfully so, because of their lack of making sure that we safely move into AI. So yes, there is a threat of dependency on AI versus still honoring us as humans and our gifts as humans, for sure. There is a war that is brewing in our identities. We already been attacked on our identities on so many levels. So why are people going to accept AI in that way? So people are doing it in secret. People are still like, man, AI is a tool, and that's what I just really want to get across. AI is a tool. It is not to be replaced. It's not to replace. Like, I still paint all my paintings, everything. That's my hands. You know what I mean? If you go to my Art by Lasay's page, I paint portraits of people, and I can make it realistic just like that. But how much time is that going to take in this microwave society where output has to be a faster than what I can physically output, right? So yes, on specific things, I'm going to use my natural gifts. Okay. I'm not about to come have AI created, go print it out and put it on a canvas. That's not what we're doing. I'm still painting a portrait. I am still accepting the part of me that has the gifts and the abilities. Those things are not going anywhere. Which is why, like, with the writing, I want to show how you can safely incorporate AI. There are safe ways to incorporate AI. I've used it enough to see the pitfalls of when people use AI, if using it safely. There's this movie called, it's a documentary, but I really loved it because it went from one extreme to the other. You know, it was objective in how it included everybody's opinions and everybody's viewpoints, but also the human struggle. So it's called AI, How I Became an Apocaloptimist or something like that. Let me see. AI doc, Apocaloptimist. This was a really good feature. Actually, I want to show,
if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong.
The trailer. So this is the trailer. The crazy part is that I went to the movie theaters to watch a movie, and I did not know this was a documentary. So I ended up watching it in the movies, and it made me pay attention to it because obviously I'm not distracted by my phone. I feel like if I was watching this at home, I'd be doing other things, but I was able to fully pay attention to this. And it really got into the environmental factors. It got into everything. It got into every concern that you might have against AI or for AI, and also what the companies are doing, what they're not doing, what they should be doing, what they, how do we safely incorporate this tool? Because yes, it's not going anywhere. They're not just going to destroy AI. So you could kick and you could scream and you could say, whatever, but you're going to get left behind like the people got left behind when internet became a thing. People rejected the internet. People did, believe it or not. And now everybody uses it. Why? Because it's a tool. It is a way to connect us in a different way. So it has its downfalls, but it also has its pros. And so when we could find what the pros are, then we could use it safely. And if you don't understand your enemy, how can you fight an enemy you don't understand? I was talking to a young lady who was in her class. She was upset. She wanted to do a waiver because she's like, why in cybersecurity do they want me to use AI for my project? I'm not using AI. I'm going to do a religious waiver. I laughed, I chuckled, and I got it because I get it. And I saw myself because I'm a rebel, okay? And so, but I used to be like a rebel, just if it didn't feel right, I'm rejecting it. I don't know why I'm rejecting it, but I'm rejecting that shit. I'm not going down that road, I'm rejecting it. But now I'm a rebel that holds nuance, right? I understand that while I won't accept this in this form, I understand that this is why this is happening, or I look at different parts and different aspects of it and I choose what to allow into my cipher. So when she said she wanted to do that, she was like, I told her about this documentary and I also said to her, I was just very playful because I get it. Like I used to be like, I'm using a religious waiver for all this stuff. Trust me, vaccines, all that stuff. Listen, don't fucks with me, okay? So I said to her, I said, hey, it's kind of hard to fight an enemy you don't know. So doing cybersecurity, they may want you to just understand what you're dealing with, because people are going to start programming AI to hack things, to do things. I didn't say all of that, but this is this is what's loaded. I didn't want to preach to her or lecture her. You know what I mean? It was just a light conversation. I just wanted to plant some seeds there. But in the grand scheme, what I really meant is that you're fighting an invisible enemy. And that's not a mistake when I said inner me. You're fighting your inner me, right? You're fighting yourself because you're having an identity battle in ways that you don't even realize that you're having, because society has programmed us to have these identity battles. And this is how control happens. This is how they're able to keep us docile and controlling us, right? They're able to pit us against each other emotionally because, we want to be in proximity to privilege and what we consider power. We are not looking at our inner power. And no AI can take away your inner power. If you use your inner power against AI, then trust me, baby, it cannot overpower you. However, it has, because, let me be clear. AI has its limitations. It cannot emotionally understand. It cannot understand emotion. There was this this show, A Man Who Fell to Earth, and I thought it was a perfect representation of what happens when they don't understand the complexities of emotion, and they have to learn to understand it. He had to learn to integrate it. Matter of fact, I think I need to watch that movie now again. I think it was before its time and when it came out, and I'm going to watch it again. But I'm going to play this AI documentary because the trailer, okay? And you can, make your choice and watch it if you want to, but I just think it really had an unbiased approach to show biases, but also to show the objective perspective as well.
Your fear of AI is the collapse of humanity.
Well, not the collapse, the abrupt extermination. There's a difference.
So I started making this movie because my wife is 6 months pregnant. It is now a terrible time to have a kid.
I mean, let's just be honest. I know people who work on AI risk who don't expect their children to make it to high school.
How does AI understand pretty much everything?
It's surprisingly straightforward.
Intelligence is about recognizing patterns.
Patterns.
If you have learned those patterns, you can generate new information. AI is moving so fast.
It's being deployed prematurely. There's so much potential for things to go wrong.
Why can't we just stop?
All these companies are in a race to get AI
That's vastly more intelligent than people within this decade.
China, North Korea, Russia.
Whoever wins is essentially the controller of humankind.
We need to take a threat from AI as seriously as global nuclear war.
It feels like I have to find these CEOs and get them in the movie.
Great.
I want to ask you to promise me that this is going to go well.
That is impossible.
Okay. Am I hopeful? Yes. Am I confident that it'll go right? Absolutely not.
AI is the thing that can solve climate change.
We could cure most diseases.
What if it's expanding what is humanly possible?
This is the most extraordinary time ever. The only time more exciting than today is tomorrow.
I already love you.
Okay.
I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong.
By using AI, we're about to move off of the Earth into the cosmos.
If we can be the most mature version of ourselves, there might be a way through this.
This is the last mistake we'll ever get to make.
So what I love about, hold on, let me put in what it suggested real quick. What I love about that, he said, this is the last mistake we'll ever get to make. And it's true. It's because if you go wrong with this, it can really go wrong. Okay, we've seen the movies. Imagine that 10 times worse. Like, I'm literally writing a book about how sometime in the future AI has taken over, and you don't know the difference between who's AI and who's human. It is a real struggle that we're already having, even with online, when you see people doing posting things and they're using AI. Some people use AI to edit. Some people use AI totally to write for them. Like, I put in a question right here, right? I think when we replace ourselves, when we're trying to replace our own thought with AI, I would take this, I look at that as like, I asked the question and now I take this, copy it and paste it and act like I said this. It's like, no, AI said this. AI shared this. I had some concerns. And yes, certain parts I pointed out, right? I pointed these things out, but this is not exactly what I said and how I said it, right? So when I just did a video yesterday that's what I'm working on the thumbnail for now, was about how to use AI and not let it use AI for editing and not let it replace your critical thinking. And so when the man mentioned thoughts, okay, when the man mentioned the thoughts about if we can become better people, warmer people, if we can like open our hearts more to each other, you know, if we can be more inclusive, if we can, you know, stop having all these race wars. Everything is just like, they find a way to keep getting us in there. You know, the whole situation with the kid who was killed in South Carolina. I want to say his name. I just can't think of it right now. Cyrus Carmack-Belton was killed by Chiki Rick Chow. I think I said that right. Chiki. He was found not guilty, right? But they find the kid who was defending himself in South Florida, Karmelo Anthony. They found Karmelo Anthony guilty. Now, witnesses said that he was minding his own business, sitting up under a tent, and these kids came to try to jump him, and he defended himself. But that didn't matter. That didn't matter to this all-white jury. It didn't matter to the justice system. It did not matter. It did not prove. That's why we have to shift this whole beyond reasonable doubt part. There has to be something shifted about that, because I just watched the Michael Jackson documentary, and while he used to be black, he turned into a white person, right? He literally was able to look and assimilate white culture. His hair, he straightened his, Vitiligo did not straighten his hair. Vitiligo did not change his nose. Vitiligo did not do any of those things. His father made him hate himself, but his gifts couldn't be denied. So the emphasis was put on his star power, but people are not buying that he was a pedophile. And I might get a lot of flack from, you know, people who love and are blinded by the star power. But when you really watch it, they tried to say on Breakfast Club that it was not objective. And I don't want to get too far off, but I'm just really wanting to show you the biases that AI picks up on. Like, these are the type of things that, you know, feeds into the systems, right? This feeds into our division. It feeds into our hearts and our identities. And so the Michael Jackson documentary was very objective. Okay? It was actually, in my opinion, too objective, because this man, they did not plant that stuff in that man's house. The FBI didn't even pick up it was regular police officers that was checking that man's house. And that boy described something that was there, and they were able to go and find it. Now, how would that woman or anybody plant anything in his room without his permission if that room had a lock on the door that needed a code and only that boy had the code, and Michael Jackson was only allowing him in the room when he was in that room? How then would he plant this in his room, and why would he do it? And then he openly said in front of Michael Jackson, in Michael Jackson's own words, during the documentary that he chose to ask Bashir to do, he said, he asked me to come into bed and I didn't want to. And Michael Jackson said, yeah, I told him, if you love me, you'll come up there. Oh, either him or the boy said it, but Michael Jackson, he was right there and he did not deny it. And the man said, how does an innocent person look? How does a guilty person look? How does an innocent person look? The man psychologically knew how to portray himself as an innocent person. I knew Michael Jackson did it when I was younger, but I just didn't, nobody else believed it. So I kind of just, went along with the whole narrative. And so the fact that this is coming back around lets me know my intuition was right the whole time, because I have been molested as a child and people did not believe me. So it's like, there is this consensus that we want whatever we are comfortable with. We want to believe what we're comfortable with. Now, I don't want to get too far off, but I really have to dive into that because I know this can go left. This can make everything I'm saying about AI and everything, this could bring up just a whole different conversation. And so, but the reality is, when you really open your heart and you really start taking in discernment, the society starts to remove our ability for discernment by gaslighting us every step of the way. We could have a feeling about things, they call you conspiracy theorist, and you find out later that some of these conspiracies were actually true. But they can easily make something exaggerated so that you can believe something so unbelievable, they can exaggerate. Excuse me. They sit here and they'll take a story that's true, right? And then they will over exaggerate it so that it becomes so unbelievable that now it's a conspiracy and it can't be believed, because no, that's too outrageous. And I always tell people the truth is stranger than fiction. Okay. I had a boyfriend in school, in high school, and, or my early college days, that he used to tell the truth all the time, right? Tell the truth a little, like, all the time, no matter if it hurt you or not. Like, he would say everything that was on his mind. And he told me, he said, I just tell the truth because they're not going to believe you anyway. And he would say some outrageous things. And because he told me that, I'm like, you're telling the truth. Yeah, I am. And people wouldn't believe him. He'll just get online, say some crazy stuff. I'm like, that's really what he's thinking. But y'all think it's funny because you can't believe a person would think that way. And he apologized to me recently, saying it was horrible how he treated me. It was horrible the things that he said to me. He can't believe that he was that type of person. And I, told him that I forgave him or whatever. But abuse was so embedded in my makeup. I was so used to being oppressed. I was so used to being abused that when abuse came to me in relationships that wasn't like super overt, that was more like the type of abuse that I've been getting, my mama always talked to me crazy. You know what I'm saying? So not in the crazy ways that I've heard other people mama talk to them, but my mom has downed me, has, backhand compliments, says things like she doesn't necessarily praise me in ways that are sincere. It would always be wrapped in some kind of like negative format. Like, she couldn't acknowledge, oh, you look so beautiful, or you lost weight, it looks good on you. She had to say it in a way of like, you better not get fat again. You shouldn't be eating that, or you mess around and get fat again. I see you done lost some weight. So it'd be like that kind of, so I'm like, oh, you do see me, but you can't straightforward just be in a loving energy about it. So when you're used to getting oppressed, when you're used to experiencing it, then it becomes your baseline. So as humans, when we are dealing with a society that oppresses us, that suffers our truths. That lady said that Gavin said, why didn't they believe me? Why didn't they believe me? They even showed him looking at the TV with his brother and running home for the verdict. Like, they had witnesses to show. Why would the maids and the people come up with this stuff? Who could pay them? Who had the money to pay them? If the government wanted Michael Jackson to go down, he would have went down. Haven't y'all seen that? If the government wanted Michael Jackson to go down, they would have gotten him. They did not. Nobody paid the maids and the former workers who saw him molesting kids to go in that courtroom and say that he molested those kids. If it was such a black and white thing, people that were their witnesses would not have changed their stories when they saw him. People wouldn't have got so emotional about, they would have found, if the government was wanted to take him down, they would have prepared these witnesses in different ways. Because it was the emotions, the human emotions that people are not used to discerning and seeing, that discredited them. Oh, because the woman had JCPenney, whatever that situation, and she was so up and down in her emotions and she was upset, the lawyer knew how to trigger her. The lawyer came down on Gavin like he was a full-blown adult when he's a kid. Y'all are saying, okay, because of the papers, because of the magazine you showed a different magazine, you intentionally tricked that boy. When how many kids, you see a kid and you show them something that looks like something they've seen before, how are they going to know that that's not the exact same issue? That's not the exact same thing, even because most of those covers were similar colors. They looked the same. They just had different dates on the issue. So the lawyer was a damn good lawyer and was doing his job. However, the kid, how can you rely? You have to think about it. This kid is coming to testify years later after the original incident happened. What need would Michael Jackson have to try to kidnap the family, to hide the family in his house so that people wouldn't be contacting him? Why would he need to record them for his safety just in case they try to change their story? Why would the mother of the family that he paid not to go to court, he drew the man's penis. He described the man's penis, whether he drew it or he described it to the law enforcement, and they got approved for a warrant to search his body. Michael Jackson admitted this. To search his body to see that those markings that boy described was the same markings. Why would that boy know what Michael Jackson's penis looked like? What sane world would know why we don't even know what his penis looked like? How did that little boy know? How did he be so intricate with it? Because if you just saw him taking a shower real quick, you still are not going to know the grand details of that penis unless you have seen it up close. Now, because he paid that family $25 million or however much he paid them, because of that, they were not able to have a victim. The mother accepted that. That little boy did not accept that. The mother exchanged her son's silence for that money. And guess what? The son does not talk to the mother. When they went and did this document, when they interviewed her or whatever, she said that she hadn't talked to her son in 11 years. Why would her son stop talking to her? When you really look at natural human reactions to abuse, why would her son not talk to her? Because you accepted silence for his dignity. You accepted money for his dignity. You made him be silent. You were paid to silence that boy. And now nobody wants to talk about it now because what? And then when you really look closely at Macaulay Culkin's interview, he said, no, nothing happened really. You know, we're just playing video games. It corroborates the story of the maid or the butler or whatever, the cleaners, seeing that he was playing the video game and Michael Jackson was playing with his Wayne. So when he says really nothing, who wants to, when you really look at the humanity as boys in society, how they look at boys and how they're tearing these boys apart in the media, why would they come forth? Because these humans have been so cruel. People protesting against the boy who's telling the truth about what happened to him, something traumatic that happened to him, but nobody believes him because of the star power of Michael Jackson. So the whole point of me saying all of this is that in the lost justice system, it's beyond a reasonable doubt is the reason why these different cases go unjustified. They go off of stereotypes. They can go off of, this jury could have a whole stereotype in their mind about a person, which AI is reflecting. Okay? AI they are reflecting these stereotypes. So if AI can program it and can pick up on it, why you think we ain't picked up on it? Right? And so we're sitting here biased as a jury. So if I see all white people this way or all black people this way, that is a subconscious bias that I have. Now, people are really good sometimes at when they do jury selection. Annalise Keaton, I know it is a fictional thing, but it's based off of real stuff, right? How to get away with murder, how she would jury selection, how they would play the system. You learn how to play the system, and that Michael Jackson's lawyer was really good at playing the system. And so just as with the case, with the recent cases, you know, if Cyrus and Belton and Chow, just like with that situation, and this is the boy, see him, 14-year-old boy, I don't give a flying phooey if he stole 4 waters, which he did not. They said that the video showed him putting the waters back. So why are y'all still chasing this man? And even if you chose to chase him because he did take the water, was that worth his life? No, it was not. And people started saying, oh, he had a gun and all this other stuff. So the fuck what? He did not pull that out. The witnesses say that gun had dropped out already. So you might be like, well, why did he have it? He shouldn't have. 14-year-old shouldn't have a gun. And da, da, da. Your biases are showing. Because just like how they chased him out of the store, they wonder why we have to protect ourselves. Why can't I default and go into AI and type in a normal prompt and get at least a probability of getting a brown person? There's no probability on my side where I'm going to get a brown person, even though if it pays attention to patterns, why hasn't it picked up that I always ask for brown people? It still has not picked up on that pattern and given me that when I type it in. Now, whether it hears me or not and chooses to do it, we don't know. But I'm showing you a clear example of the biases that we have in society that keeps us in these dynamics. And now we're feeding a system. We're going head first into a system that picks up these patterns. And how do we expect it not to replicate what we've programmed it to replicate? So then we have to balance it. We have to be the ones to work harder to show a different aspect of ourselves than that which is also, we do have fierceness. We will go to war. We will defend ourselves. We will do nonviolence and be in peace, right? We have shown big movements of where we was able to be nonviolent against our oppressors who were lynching us, who were eating us, who were dragging us in the streets, kids or no kids. Yet, somehow we still have to show some type of aspect of ourselves to flood the airwaves so that in the future, when AI that's picking up on all these patterns, that it doesn't choose to oppress us. Because what happens if it takes over? Who's it gonna oppress? It's going to mimic the patterns of what we've taught it. So who's in danger? So we have to approach this safely, but we have to know our enemy. And we also have to know our inner me. So we have to know ourselves. We have to know our hearts. We have to learn discernment, because society has stripped away our ability to discern by gaslighting us in every way. When you think that look at who our president is. I don't even claim he's my president. He's not my president. But when society has to undergo this, we have to look at ourselves and balance within ourselves so that we can recognize AI. I'm actually writing a book. Let me see. Let me go. I need y'all to see that. I'm going to block that out when I do it. Let me see. Let me type. Computatrum. The term is defined as the animal as seen through the human eyes. This explains our obsession with giving animals human attributes. I know it sounds, that's this word, inspired by, but what is the definition of Computatrum? I just remember I came up with this book and I was like trying to think of a name. This is the book that I'm working on. Define computer. Yes. I don't even know why. Computation. But this is interesting, because this makes it deeper, but we're not going to get into that just yet. I'm going to have to assess how I pulled that out at that time. Was not using... Okay, come on. What are you doing? Okay. So, Prometheus is a biracial, that's interesting, 28-year-old journalist who was in an unhappy relationship with his AI girlfriend, Michi. Now get this though, he doesn't know that she's AI. I just want to premise that. She died in a suspicious way, and his investigation leads him into damning secrets from the leaders of their government, such as the way they disposed of and got rid of humans, how they siphon energy from the current humans to extend and build better AI, how they covered up secrets and hid knowledge from the new world and created one where they would ensure complete control. Eventually, he links up with a new friend that he ironically met the day his girlfriend died in a car crash. This new friend, Brett knows pros practically royal, but deceased blood lineage means that he is the key to changing everything. Brett often proves to know more about Pro than Pro knows about Pro, and had been watching him, waiting for a natural time to meet him and gain his trust. Brett becomes somewhat of a spiritual guide for Pro throughout his journey, so that ultimately Pro can save the human race from being oppressed and eventually completely obliterated by human-like AI. Pro eventually realizes he has been living amongst AIs posing as humans, but those robots, just like his girlfriend, don't know that they're not human. The government has been formed in a way that keeps it from them from finding out who they are, down to the incorrect nature of using the Tree of Life maps. Pro's friend Brett takes him on an adventure that causes him to accidentally end up in the year 2019, just before COVID spreads worldwide. The challenges they faced up until this point were nothing compared to what happens when he quantum loops, as he ends up being in the bodies of a young black woman instead of his own. He can't seem to figure out how to contact his team in 3088. So he tries different inventions and researches methods to get him back home, to no success. His, now her, desire for justice sweeps them away at times, distracting him from getting back home. But he is on a search to advancing through this Tree of Life map that he was guided to. The real Tree of Life map, not the fake one that exists in the future to keep everyone under control. He finds ancient information that was destroyed before his time, but is able to use this information to advance on the map so that he can return to his time period and save what is left of humanity after the world ended. I think this is a great place because I've been talking for about an hour, almost an hour now. It'll be an hour and 2 minutes. So I am exploring these AI features. I am getting to know what could potentially be the enemy, right? I am getting to know what we're up against. So where people could say, oh, you're selling out, you're doing AI, you're with the oppressor or whatever. Get some discernment. Learn who you're talking to. Learn what's happening, because I know what the fuck I'm doing. Do you know what you're doing? Because at the end of the day, while you're trying to fight it with your words online, like that's going to do something, because most of y'all are not out here actually fighting against AI. You're just complaining about it at home, just like a lot of y'all are complaining about civil rights. Y'all are complaining about the government. Y'all are complaining. Y'all get it out, and it's dopamine, oxytocin, whatever you call it, is created in your body to make you feel like you've done something because you have typed it out online. It's the same concept when you journal something. When you journal something and you sit here and you get it out, you're angry about it and you get it out, you're no longer as mad about it anymore. So your willpower to do something about it shifts. But the beauty in that is that if it's still dissonant to who you are, you can approach it from a leveled standpoint, a level-headed standpoint, a heart-led standpoint, and you could see things that you weren't able to see when you were under the emotional drunkenness before you wrote it out. So I'm not saying you ain't doing nothing by talking about it. Because trust me, talking about it is using your voice. You're using your throat chakra. That's a good thing. But then what? After we talk about it, now what? What actions are you taking? Me, I'm writing about it. I'm doing these videos. I'm sharing things. I'm shifting perceptions. I'm looking at things deeper. I am learning how to tend to my own heart. I'm learning to understand the discernment that was programmed out of me, right? I'm learning to get back and remember who I am. And that's where we all benefit from. And this is where AI becomes a space where it's not our enemy. If we could all somehow find our ways back to our heart spaces and remember who the fuck we are, maybe, just maybe, we have a chance against this hidden enemy that's becoming not so hidden anymore. Anyways, that's my time, y'all. Peace.